everyone to the September 12th, 2022 Select Board meeting. If you could all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first, do you say something?
No, but if you start off with a roll call of members present.
First off, we're just going to do a roll call. Collis, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, Collis Adams, I'm participating remotely.
Thank you.
Mark LeMay.
Kelly Boyer.
Jim Craig.
Great. And all of our votes tonight will be by roll call. First up, we have the acceptance and corrections of minutes. We'll do 8/22/2022 public and non-public first.
I'll make a motion, we do the 8/22/22 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Jim. All in favor? Collis?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. Motion passes with one abstention. And then we'll do the 9/1/2022 public and non-public minutes.
I'll do the 9/1/22 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jim. We'll go ahead and take a vote on that. Any comments? Any corrections? No? Okay, Collis?
I'll abstain on that one as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right, motion passes with 3 and 1 abstention.
You're on a roll.
All right, great. We have a couple of announcements this evening. The first one is a notice to voters. The state primary voting will be held Tuesday, September 13th, 2022 at Goffstown High School, 27 Wallace Road, for residents in Ward 1, and Bartlett Elementary School, 689 Mass Road, for residents in Ward 5. The polls will be open between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. for the nomination of candidates. The Democratic sample ballot and Republican sample ballot are both available by clicking the Election Info button on the town website at www.goffstown.com. Sample ballots are also posted at Town Hall, and I believe the library as well. So there's tomorrow, Election Day, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The next announcement is that Tuesday, September 13th, the town clerk's office will be closed all day. The town clerk's staff will be at election polls for the New Hampshire state primary. On election day, a qualified delivery agent may deliver an absentee ballot to the clerk at the voter's polling location by 5 p.m. The town clerk's office will return to regular hours on Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we also have a proclamation this evening I'm going to read. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodied the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebration which will commemorate it. And now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Goffstown, County of Hillsborough, State of New Hampshire, by virtue of the authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim that September 17th through September 23rd, 2022, be designated as Constitution Week throughout the town of Goffstown, New Hampshire, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting freedoms granted to us through this guardian of our liberties, given under our hand and seal this 12th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2022. And it's signed by all, the members of the Select Board who are here this evening. All right. We have about 5 minutes till public comment. Derek, did you want to get started on the administrator's report?
Yes. So if you open to tab 6, you have your committee meeting assignment for the next 2 weeks. Just a reminder, the primary elections are tomorrow. So if you could be at your respective polls starting at 6 a.m. To open the polls, and then as you need breaks, just coordinate with each other. Mark over at Penardville, you can work with those present to name a pro temp. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. the Sewer Commission's meeting in this room. If you're unable to make it because of duties at the polls, I can just ask for them to provide you a list of notes of what occurs.
Or I can go after
Or you
at
can-
7 and do the counting.
Yeah, at 7 we need to do the counting, and I need board members at the high school to help box up all the ballots and all the end of the night duties, so.
Otherwise, I'll be there at
Okay.
the sewer.
Okay. Thursday, 6 p.m. the Budget Committee school tours start at Glen Lake and Maple Ave.
I'll be there.
Thank you. Next week, on Wednesday at 9 a.m., the Highway Safety Committee is meeting at the Police Department.
Yep.
At 6:30 p.m., Library Trustees will be meeting at the Public Library.
I'll be there.
And at 7 p.m., Parks and Rec Commission meet at Parks and Rec Center. That's usually Chairman Georgianis, so we'll follow up with him. Thursday, 6 p.m., Budget Committee school tours of Bartlett and Mountain View Middle School.
I'll be there.
And Thursday at 7 p.m. will be the Planning Board here in Town Hall.
I'll be there.
Thank you. At your next page, you've got your consent agenda. You have employee status reports, a DPW laborer to equipment operator promotion. You have a crossing guard resignation, a crossing guard rehire, and you have a firefighter to firefighter AEMT merit increase. You have event permits for the Goffstown Main Street program, Giant Pumpkin Way Off and Regatta on Saturday, October 15th and Sunday, October 16th. The Library Outdoor Skywatch on September 28th at Barnard Park. You have rights to inter in Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 2, Lot 31B, and Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 3, Lot 47. And then added this afternoon, you had the proclamation for Constitution Week.
Thanks, Derek. I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve the consensus agenda as presented this evening.
Thank you, Mark.
Second?
Thank you, Jim. And we'll do a roll call vote on that. Collis?
Yes,
Yes.
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 Thank you. At your next page, you have a land use change tax and a land use change tax warrant for map 12, lot 10-3. This is recommended by the town assessor.
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendation as presented this evening.
Second?
Motion by Mark, second by Jim. Collis?
yes,
Yes.
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 Thank you.
At your next page, you have an amended MS1 summary inventory evaluations. The board approved the MS1 on August 22nd. However, on August 29th, Liberty Utilities filed an amended value of their property. It increased by $78,000. So this is to reflect that amended value. There's, again, that slight increase in the utility properties.
I'll move to approve the amended 2022 MS1 summary inventory evaluation as prepared by the assessor.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Jim, second by Mark. Collis?
yes,
Yes.
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 Thank you.
The next item on 6E will probably generate a little bit of discussion, so I don't know if you want to move back to the public comment in the beginning of the agenda.
Yeah, we can do that. I'd like to go ahead and open it up to public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak this evening? Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
Jane McKinnon, 25 Meadowlark Lane, Goffstown.
If you could just
Do you
come up to
mind
the
sitting
microphone.
by the
No,
microphones?
not at all.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm Jenny McKinnon, 25 Meadowlark Lane, Goffstown. I'm here representing the New Boston chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. We brought forward the proclamation for Constitution Week. We have members from Goffstown, Boston, and surrounding communities. And since it's the 250th year of the drafting of the Constitution, we thought it would be a really good year to put this forward. So thank you for looking on it kindly, and thank you to your office for drafting up the paperwork for us. So, thank you
Yeah,
very
of
much.
course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Derek, I'll hand this back to you. I'm not sure if you want to hang on to it for a bit or if you'd like to present it to Ms. McKinnon while she's here. It's up to you. Whatever she prefers, if you'd like all the signatures or...
Do you want to take a copy now?
That would be great, thank you.
Is anyone else here for public comment? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. And next up, we have the fire chief.
Good evening, members.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Cheers. I'm back before you to discuss the master firefighter job description. Based on our discussion and input from our last meeting, I did go back through the job description, and I did make some changes. There was really one major change, and that was the experience, education, training, and certification requirements for the master firefighter. That's on page 4. Previously, we had a minimum of 3 years active full-time Goffstown Fire Department service and having worked in an acting or audit classification supervisory position. I did remove the Goffstown piece of that, so it now reads a minimum of 3 years active full-time fire department service and having worked in an acting or out of classification supervisory position. And this will allow us to advertise it as actually another step available and perhaps be a recruitment tool, as well as the overall retention tool for the rest of the department.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Chief. I see that, and I also think the ones underneath that kind of go along with that, sort of, help elevate that within what you're looking for in the department. So I appreciate you putting the thoughtfulness into the probationary period, training classes, the Primex classes, all that stuff that we talked about.
Thank you.
Kelly, I got a question.
Yes, Mike, go ahead.
So Chief, how does the union feel? I have to ask that question. I mean, if I was a union member and I saw that, if they bring somebody in that, automatically qualifies for that, where we've spent a number of times, number of years there, I just wonder, union okay with it?
They are.
Okay, that's fine.
The proposed changes
Yep.
were run by them, and I asked them for comment.
That's fine. Yep, that's fine. Thank you, Chief.
They are very much appreciative of creating this position for them, because it gives them something to look forward to as an in-between their position and lieutenant.
Yep, thank you.
Collis, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Need a motion?
There is one on here. Derek, do we need an approval for the new
Yes,
job
please, if you
description?
could make a motion to adopt the master firefighter job description as presented with an effective date of, we'll say, September 13th at 0 hours and I guess 1 minute. That'd be great.
So moved.
You want me to say it, or?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll make that motion that we accept the revised job description for the master firefighters as presented this evening to us, being effective September 13th at 001.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jim, for that teamwork. Any questions? Any further comments? No? Collis?
I have none, thank you. I vote yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Derek, it's your call. Do you want to start with the Public Works
Yes, yeah, if we could go to tab 5 in your packet. I spoke with Adam today, and he was a little bit under the weather, so was not able to attend this evening. But in your packet, you have a recommendation from the DPW director on award of 3 bids that were opened last week. Again, the budget included appropriation to replace the 2007 six-wheel dump, as well as the plow body with it, as well as replace a 2009 Ford F-350 pickup truck. In your packet, you have, on the next page, you have the bids that were submitted, and you have the financial impact on Adam's memo. He is recommending the low bid in all 3 cases, the 6-wheeled truck, cab, and chassis. He recommended an extended warranty for 7-year transmission, engine, and vehicle components for an additional $10,294. And then, so the recommendation was a 6-wheel cab and chassis to Allegiance Truck of Manchester, New Hampshire. That includes that extended warranty for a total of $118,089. And then he recommended award of the body and plow gear to Viking Sieves of Williston, Vermont, in the amount of $99,200. And then the final one, he recommended award of the 1-ton pickup truck to Grapponi Ford of Concord, New Hampshire, in the amount of $45,030. Again, those bid recommendations are the low bids in each case.
Thanks, Derek. I just have a question. Do any of these include the trade-ins? Any trade-ins?
They do not include the trade-in. Adam is recommending that we sell the outgoing vehicles at auction. We've had some success with the auction at the time those vehicles are actually delivered, because it will take a little bit of time for all these to come in.
Okay.
I just have a question, Derek. Did we ever figure out that last little hiccup when we sold the ex-police cruiser as far as having issues?
I'd be happy to update the board later in non-public.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. If we need to add something when it comes time to sell those, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that
I can update the board on that.
Great, thank you.
Maybe I missed something, but the Allegiance trucks bid of 118, looking on the second page, it's the base of 107,795, and then the trade allowance 16. So I'm just confused how you get 118.
So if you go up to the financial impact, Adam is recommending an extended warranty that costs $10,294.
Gotcha.
That's how you get that 118.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take them one at a time or all together?
Well, yes, but I have one more question. The CIP amounts for
Yes.
these, are these all within CIP amounts?
These are, so Adam, actually, we did talk about this as well. So for, let's see, for the vehicles, he had $252,000 and $252,500 budgeted. So this is going to go slightly over that amount. So you've got the 118. So you've got about 265. So it is going to go over. So we're going to have to find savings elsewhere, either in DPW's budget or somewhere. The other suggestion is the House Bill 401 funds that were adopted, those non-lapsing highway funds that were accepted at your last meeting. Those have the ability to not only pay for road and bridge maintenance, but also vehicles that go towards that road and bridge maintenance. So Adam would be coming forward with his preferred solution at a future meeting.
Well, maybe the auction funds can offset that, but we don't know what those
It
will be.
can't, the auction funds will occur in 2023, and they'll be received as a revenue. They won't
Right.
reduce the expense. So,
Did you do the math on how much we're over?
yeah, I can do it real quick. Sorry, I did it earlier today, but I didn't.
And
write it
it's a
down.
difficult one because through CIP, the approved amount and costs have changed, so I understand that, and we are going with the low bid on all of them. I don't like when we go over.
So the total
CIP
amount
amounts.
is the 118,089, the 99,200, and the 45,30 that he's recommending comes to 262,319, and the total that he had budgeted for these three was 252,500.
Okay, so,
So you've got a difference of $9,819 on these three vehicles.
thank you.
So again, the board could take care of that at a future meeting through budget transfer from elsewhere in the operating budget, or Adam suggested perhaps using some of the non-lapsing SB 401 funds. I guess it was HB 401 funds.
Where would he budget transfer from?
He did not provide exact ones. I know he's also got an overage on his Packer. The Packer came in more than was budgeted for. So he would have to pull it from some other, again, savings. He did mention, hold on. He mentioned he may be able to pull from the garage. He said the garage project, but that's a special article, so we wouldn't be able to pull from that. So it would most likely be the non-lapsing highway funds that we got in addition, or savings elsewhere in the budget.
When do we need to make a decision on this?
Let
I mean,
me
it's almost
see.
$10,000 in overage. I'm not comfortable agreeing to using road funds with the amount of road work that we need to do without a more clear explanation.
How much is a trash packer over by? Do we,
The trash packer on solid waste was $68,359. That one was over. I just want to see, normally when Adam does a bid package, he does a pretty good job requiring that the price remain constant for a certain length of time. I just want to see if,
I mean, also the price that we're over is basically the warranty, the extended warranty.
so bids are, the bid price says shall be irrevocable for a period of 90 calendar days following bid opening. And the bid opening again was last week, so if you wanted to delay until the next meeting and ask Adam for those specifics, you could.
We could approve two, leave one.
We could, but the pricing will hold for 90 days.
Yes.
personally, I'm not happy. Almost $17,000 over on both trucks. Nope. As far as I'm concerned, figure out a plan and come back and tell us.
Well, I think looking at his memo, again, I didn't speak with him about this, it's really, what's putting him over is that extended warranty. That extended warranty of $10,000 is the item that's putting him over budget on this.
And was that in the bid specifically, or is that something that
It
he's
was
just
an option.
recommending?
It was an option that, my guess is he asked for that.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to hold off on this one,
Okay.
unless
Yep.
anyone has strong feelings otherwise.
Yep, no, let's figure something out.
All right, Collis, did you hear we're gonna table this one?
Yeah, I'd like to hold off on it as well so that Adam can be there and I can be there as well.
Perfect.
You need a motion
Sounds
to
good.
table?
No, I don't think you need a motion, so what I'll do is I'll put this on your agenda for the next meeting, provided Adam can attend.
Okay. Do we wanna go back to the town administrator report?
Yeah, I'd ask for
Last one.
Danielle to come up. Danielle has a recommendation for a review of the town's fund balance policy. This is at tab 6E of your packet.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good evening.
Just look at the right page. Okay. So I'm coming before you this evening to bring to your attention a recommendation to bring our fund balance policy up to date. It has not been reviewed or altered since its adoption in 2007. So in looking through best practices, we've been made aware that we should take a look at this and potentially increase the thresholds that are currently in our policy. Provided for you this evening includes a draft version of the updates that I would recommend for your consideration. You can see the red line of how things have changed. And I wanted to discuss and bring to your attention the fact that this is really important for the stability of the town's fiscal position. And it's really to mitigate current and future risks, such as economic downturns, changes in state revenue or state aid, things that revenues that we may have predicted to come in that may not actually come in a given year, all the various things that can happen in a regular operating year. And I'm available to discuss, or I can go over some of those recommendations if you'd like.
Danielle, can you just quickly for those watching and just give a general recap on the different items, why we hold the funds in our fund balance and the different items that holding is responsible for and how it's not actually cash in the bank? Yes,
Sure.
thank you.
Carlos's dog's not happy.
One thing that we have to keep in mind when we talk about unassigned fund balance is it really is just a statement of net position. It's a snapshot in time based on looking at our assets, subtracting out our liabilities, and then taking a look at what's left. The amount that's left is not necessarily cash. As an example, looking at like our 2021 rate setting, where we had the unassigned fund balance figure of 8.6 million, $1 million was used at tax rate setting by the select board this time last year to reduce the tax amount. 1.5 million was tied up in outstanding taxes that had not been collected. Another $500,000 was in other outstanding debts to the town. And then another 3.3 million was tied up in deferred inflows that are just a figure on the financial statement. So out of that 8.6 million, only about 2.3 million was represented by cash. So that's something that can really play into the mix when we're trying to figure out collecting taxes and continuing with operations before we get to the 2 times a year that we collect taxes. Throughout the year, we do have to turn over funds to the entities such as the state, the county, and the school for their portions of taxes, regardless of whether or not those funds come in. So this also helps avoid unanticipated borrowing through the means of tax anticipation notes.
Danielle, can you also just talk about, I'm looking at what we currently have in our policy for the
minimums?
percentages? Yes, can you go through the proposed minimum and maximum and why you set that?
Sure. So currently, the policy has adopted a 5% minimum and an 8% select board target. However, GFOA recommends that you not have a minimum below 2 months' worth of the general fund operating expenditures. And something to highlight as a new addition to the policy is an explanation of that general fund operating expenditure. It's not the town's general fund operating. It's actually the calculation of those appropriations for the town, the state, and the school, as well as the county. So if we take a look at the general fund operating expenditures in 2021, that number was just over $52 million. So if you were to use the 2-month minimum that GFOA recommends, you would need to carry about $8.5 million as a minimum threshold versus the $5 million, which puts you around 2.8. So trying to increase the minimum to come up to the best practices as recommended across the industry and specifically in government accounting, that 2 months worth equals 16.67%. So 2 months out of 12 months of the year, that's where you get a 16.7 percentage marker, and that's what I've recommended as the minimum as compared to the 5% minimum we currently have in the policy. A target balance of 8% is currently in the policy, and I was recommending a target balance of 18% in order to not only meet that minimum of 16.7, but give us just a hair of buffer considering our size and some of the volatility of the revenues we have in our budget.
Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand how this whole thing works, but this is not any, has nothing to do with the tax base or anything like that. This is a transfer, or we're raising the amount of money we're going to put aside. Kind of like, I'm thinking in my head, it's kind of like a rainy day fund, but it's...
But it's not cash, right? So what's different about the town's unassigned fund balance is it's not cash. We can't dip into it except for very specific reasons. As you see every year in the voter's guide, we try to educate people on that. You can only use fund balance for tax rate setting, so to lower the town's portion of the taxes. You can use it for special articles when those articles go before the voters. That's why you see those on the ballot individually. And then the third option to use unassigned fund balance is in an emergency. And it can't just be any emergency that we declare. It has to go through a legal process that involves the select board and the budget committee, and the Department of Revenue has to sign off as well before those funds can be used. So the unassigned fund balance is something that we need to have for stability, but it's not cash and it can't be accessed like a rainy day fund. So in this case, we're trying to increase in the policy just the net position on the financial statements. So the financial statements take everything into account, including, the town's capital assets, construction in progress, such as road development. Those are all considered on our assets. The town's buildings, those are assets that are on the financials. And then we start taking away the liabilities, such as the accounts payable, amounts due to other governments, and what's left over is what you see as a fund balance. So
Okay, is that what we're taking 18% of?
that's what we're
Net?
looking to increase that net position so that you're not dealing with such a tight turnaround for what is available while we wait to collect taxes.
Okay, just help me. So if we raise that from whatever, what's the percentage now?
Currently, the target is
And
8%.
then we raise it to 16 or 17. I guess where does that increase come from? I'm confused with that.
So can you explain how fund balance is increased?
Over the history.
Yeah, maybe just on each year, what kind of goes into that increases on the revenue side and the
Okay,
expenditure
sure.
side?
Yeah, so each year, the fund balance changes based on some of our regular operating procedures. So if we underspend our expenses, our appropriations that we had planned and budgeted for, that savings is something that counts towards the fund balance, as well as any increased revenues. So those are the two most common areas that you see the development of fund balance. So if we have higher than expected revenue, say in motor vehicle or one of the other streams of revenue that we have, then it's going to be available in the fund balance and will be captured during tax rate setting as well. So if you take a look at where we were in 2021, we didn't have the 8% on our books. When we set our tax rate, we were at about 14.7% just over the course of history. That's where we landed at that point in time.
But that was after you used the 1 million.
After you used the 1
So at tax rate setting last year, the town had about $8.6 million in unassigned fund balance, which was 16.6%. So that's, again, right at what Danielle's recommending for a minimum following the GFOA recommendations.
So that means last year, we wouldn't have appropriated anything to special projects.
You would have had to look at your policy and you would have had to make a decision. This doesn't prevent you from using fund balance to stabilize tax rate. It's just, again,
Well-
it's a recommendation to get to.
I mean, if I'm reading this correctly, it says, "The town shall achieve and maintain a minimum undesignated fund balance at 16.7%. So, shall achieve and maintain would tell me that we don't have a choice in that then, if that's the policy.
I guess, yes.
It's a board's
It is.
adopted policy, so as with any other board adopted policy, the board can choose to waive it at any given point in time. This is just really the guideline for the board to have
Well, then I
as
guess.
they make those considerations every year.
Yeah, I understand. I guess my question would be then, currently in the minimum balance, we don't have any set percentage, but we have a target balance of at least 8%.
Currently, you have a minimum balance of 5%.
Oh, I'm sorry, just in this section, it
It's hard
doesn't
to
say that.
see, yeah. It's hard to see because it looks like 16.75, but there's actually a line through the 5 because
Oh,
that's
gotcha.
an updated percentage.
Okay. I mean, I don't really want to set a policy for us to then turn around and break it. Would it be possible for us to look at, I feel like this might be a lot of work, but how much we had in the fund balance and then how much the select board chose to use each year? Is that a lot
Yeah, I
of work?
have that for you.
Because I think that would be quite interesting to see how it, like in the past 5 years, let's say, because we used quite a bit from unassigned fund balance. We used a lot to offset taxes during COVID specifically to try to provide some relief. And I think having the ability to do things like that is very important while looking at this in a way to say that we need to keep more in the unassigned fund balance. I think that's important, but I don't want us to set a policy and then turn around and revoke it every single year. That seems counterproductive on our part. Sorry,
Yeah,
does
so-
anyone, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. For recent history, just to give you an idea, so I went back to 2015. That information's all readily available on the DRA portal. So to give you an idea, the fund balance that was used at town meeting and tax rate setting time combined was $200,000 in 2015. Then it was about $500,000 in 16, $519 in 17, so it slowly went up. In 2018, it went up to $975,000 that was used. And then after that, 2019, you used $1.5 million. 2020 used just over $1 million. In 21, you used $1.35 million. So the
Yeah.
use of fund balance has steadily increased and exponentially increased in the last few years. This year in '22, $865,000 was already approved by the voters at town meeting.
Right.
So some of those monies may not get used if some of the projects that were voted upon don't get completed.
Right.
Then the money would return to fund balance unless there is a encumbrance or something specific to that project. As you know, we can't use it for a different project. But that is something to keep in mind as well. And so the fund balance has very slowly increased from about 12%, gone up a little bit. The highest we saw was in 2018, but that's kind of an outlier because that's when the school did the return of surplus funds. So it looks like the percentage is higher, but it's really because that 10 million came in all at once.
Was that the year we did the catch-up on the fire apparatus fund as well? I feel like it was.
18.
Maybe it might have been 19. Anyways,
I have
it
to
doesn't
double
really
check.
matter.
I'm sure what we can do is
We can get you
we've
some
got all that
figures.
history and we can provide that history to the board so you can see, because we've provided that history to the budget committee and the select board during budget discussions, so we've got it and we can present that to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to get this before you tonight so that you could take a look at it, start thinking about, you know, the policy, where it stands now, what we're recommending based on the current practices, and hopefully a decision could be made at the next meeting, because in October, we'll be getting into not only our budget discussions, but also tax rate setting, and we really need to know what the board's guidelines are in order for us to be able to make recommendations of what's available.
I'd like to wait for Pete as well, because I'm sure he'll have some thoughts on this, if the rest of the board is
Yeah,
okay with that. Go ahead, Collis.
And my way on this, this whole unassigned fund balance is a somewhat complex, but very, very important concept that I think that needs to be considered carefully. Certainly, we've seen that in the past, and I would like to see it tabled so that Peter and I can both be present in person during discussion. So I think it's appropriate to table this to a future meeting.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
No, I just think this was a good discussion to start. It helped me anyway, so, okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
We'll bring back more figures at the next meeting so that you have the numbers in front of you for reference as well, some of
Yeah,
the
that would be
history.
great.
Yeah,
Because I'd like to see what our holding percentage was. Like, were we ever even close to this 16.7%?
Yes,
So that would be, I think, good to note, like, what that actually looked
Yeah.
like for us. But
absolutely.
I know it's going to be different this year anyways, especially with the revaluation. But
Well, there won't be at this tax rate
Next
setting.
one.
Next year, yes, it will completely, everything will, well, no, because your percentage of fund balance is based off of operating budgets, not value. I mean, your tax rate is, but, so, just so we can be clear, you wanted about a 5-year history of fund balance and where we've been percentage-wise. I also heard you mention the fire apparatus capital reserve fund. Did you want the history of that?
no, I just remember what, we had skipped a year, so
Yep.
we put extra in another year, that's
Okay.
all.
Okay.
How does the rest of the board feel about 5 years' worth?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we can go back to
I
2015.
think we've got it back,
easily.
real good information back to 2015. the
If you
DRA
haven't,
form.
and it's not a
Okay.
huge burden, that would be great. But I think, yeah, we used the most in the past few years, so
Yeah,
whatever
okay.
you can provide is great. Okay, go ahead.
So Danielle, just looking long range, these numbers, they seem to go up significantly year after year after year. How, looking into that crystal ball, how long range, what effect will the changes that we make on this program have down the road, we'll say 5 years? Will we be visiting this again in 5 more years, or will it stay status quo?
Well, it's definitely a good idea to continue reviewing the policy every couple of years at least.
Yep.
But what's great about using the percentages is the numbers in the policy are just to give you an example at a glance. The percentage ensures that no matter what those appropriations are, you have a guide for
Okay.
what those numbers are without having to revise the
Alright.
policy every time.
Thank you. What's that, Kelly?
Any other questions, Carlos? You got anything else?
How about that?
Okay. Jim, you all set with this?
Well, just one. Are there any, these are standards recommended by the GFOA and Department of Revenue Administration. Are there any limits or any, do
Like
they
how-
Like a
regulate?
maximum?
Yeah, is there anything that we have to comply with by their, it's just up to us, and that's their recommendations, and there's no there's no teeth to those other than,
Correct, yeah, the DRA sets a minimum recommended and a maximum recommended. They have not updated those percentages in quite some time, but on tax rate setting, they specifically say you should refer to the GFOA, the government finance group, for current best practices, and those are updated frequently. The percentage, the 16.7%, GFOA recommends as a minimum, and then they do go on to explain that if you are in a place that either has, natural disasters or maybe some unanticipated economic changes, places with volatile revenues, then they certainly recommend that you consider increasing above that minimum as well. So there's no regulated
we're free to do
minimum or
what we think
maximum.
is prudent.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All set? Thank you, Danielle.
Oh, while I'm up here, can I do the oil update as well?
Yes, please.
Okay. So at the last meeting, I had asked for permission to tentatively lock in an agreement. Unfortunately, when the paperwork came through, that number was drastically different than was quoted. So at this point, I'm here to ask permission for me to negotiate a rate. I can tell you that today's rate is 3.849 per gallon. Our current rate from 2019 is 2.29, and that was locked in 2019 when we did our bidding, so they had locked it in ahead of time for 22. We have seen about a 30% swing in less than 30 days. So, we're seeing it creep up about, a few pennies every week.
So why wouldn't they honor, it had changed by the time we voted on it again? 'Cause
They
hadn't
had
you
made
checked
an
that date?
error in their calculations and looked at the propane rate rather than the oil rate. Luckily, the oil, we only use about 3,500 gallons to 3,800 gallons a year, so
Yeah.
it's significantly lower, and we are already locked in on our propane.
Right.
So as far as usage goes, it's a much smaller impact, but we do want to get it locked in, I think, before we get into heating season. They won't allow us to lock in after October.
Make the motion. Yeah.
I'll
let's
make a
negotiate.
motion. We allow Danielle to basically get the bid squared away for the fuel oil for 3.849.
Okay.
Second that.
Thank you. Motion by Mark, second by Jim. Any questions? Collis?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
We'll get that in tonight. Thank you.
All right. Select Board discussion, tab 7A, new business. Derek, do you want to give a recap on this one?
Yes, so this was, it was a request from the select board at your last meeting to include this on the agenda. We had received a letter, the board had received a letter in July of this year, as well as July in 2018, from a resident requesting that the select board revisit the permissible fireworks ordinance and have a discussion. For your benefit, in your packet is a copy of those two letters. Immediately behind that is a copy of the permissible fireworks ordinance that was adopted in 2015. And I also provided the board with a copy of all the minutes, because at the time of this adoption in 2015, there were quite a few public input sessions, public hearings related to the fireworks ordinance. So that is all in there. I know the individual that submitted the letter is in attendance this evening, if you wish to ask any questions. But I guess the question is, does the board want to make any changes to the current ordinance, or do you want to do a public input session or anything like that?
I know that last time that the language was discussed, it was worked on heavily with the fire chief and the police chief. And I wonder if that language, if either of you are aware of language changing in the state in regards to fireworks.
So there's only been one change to the fireworks law in the state of New Hampshire, and it's in regards to bottle rockets. So there has been a change. Those, at the time this ordinance was adopted, were not permitted, and that prohibition has been lifted under the state law. So the bottle rockets would now be allowed under state law, but it can be regulated by local ordinance. So right now, your ordinance speaks to those as being a prohibited item and points towards that specific RSA. It may be proper to update your ordinance to decide whether or not you want to continue that prohibition, or if you would like to allow that as the state law does. And I'm sure the fire chief or police chief could provide specific input on that item.
Collis, any questions or comments?
Not at this time. I want to hear some discussion first.
Okay.
I looked at that, I remember when we developed the ordinance back, I don't know what year it was exactly. There was a lot of discussion on this. It was a really difficult ordinance to craft, trying to balance, you know, the desires of the residents to celebrate appropriately with others who thought it might be an overreach and an imposition on their peace and quiet or what have you. So I know it was discussed heavily, and I remember it took a long time to actually craft what we have in place right now. So I'll just say that for way of background.
Okay. Mark, questions, comments?
I'd just like a little bit more time to review the ordinance. I got it here in front of me, and I just gotta spend a little time, but, I mean, as far as bottle rockets, we all know, I mean, we see them go up all the time, whether it's legal or illegal. So, I mean, people kind of do what they want to do, unfortunately, you know. Whether we change it to allow it or not allow it, people are still gonna do what they want to do, unfortunately.
I'm just wondering if the police have any issues with the current use of fireworks in the town. Is it a problem?
Chief, could you come up, please? Thank you.
I'm not sure if I should let my colleague off the hook on this one, because I'm sure he's got something to say too. But,
Chief,
you're
you can
welcome.
come up
You're
as well if you'd like.
You're welcome.
There's another chair up here for you.
So really, kind of looking into this, I did some real quick research, just since 2019 to year to date today. And really, each year, so in 2019, 2020, 2021, and then year to date, 2019, the total calls for us were 20. So for the whole year, we saw 20 calls for fireworks-related calls. In 2020, there was just 20 calls for the whole year. 2021, we saw a little bit of an increase to 29, and then year to date today, we have only seen 8. And what we're seeing when we look through the analysis, I look through the calls, and I'm kind of dissecting them, is a lot of them are residents who are concerned about the noise. We have this ordinance, and at 10 o'clock on the spot, the fireworks are still going off, and residents are done with it. Mm-hmm. So the residents call us at 10:05, 10:10, 10:15, and our officers respond when they actually see the fireworks being displayed past the ordinance. They go and make contact, and a lot of the residents in this community that do that don't understand, don't know about the ordinance, so we just educate them. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple that were in the last 3 to 4 years that were shooting from public streets, which is prohibited, so we have helped educate the residents that are doing that. We've had a handful of calls throughout the years where residents that live on the lake are concerned about the litter on the lake. Mm-hmm. Their concern is who's in charge of picking this up. it's a really tough call for us because there's probably several houses on the lake that are shooting fireworks off, so whose responsibility is it to pick up the litter? Obviously, the ordinance talks about litter control and it's staying on your property. None of our calls that I've seen just in the last 3 years that I looked at were litter issues. It was more of noise, that people are just done hearing it all night and they want it to stop.
Chief, is there a specific time of year where you typically get more? Is it right around the 4th of July?
So it's
or-
interesting. It is, the majority of it is 4th of July, but we've had some calls anywhere from May to August, some in December for New Year's, but there is this concentration of the 4th of July. We don't see a lot of the Labor Day, Memorial Day stuff. Only maybe 1 or 2 calls for the New Year's. And essentially that is the one that gets 2 or 3 that get shot off at New Year's at midnight. People call. By the time our officers get over there, which is usually pretty fast, they're already they're in their house and
Lights are out.
and done for the night. So, you know, without going back to prior 2015, that's just a quick snapshot of what we faced with in the last 3 years. I know my predecessor had brought some numbers up earlier through the, you know, before that, and it just depends. It just depends on who's shooting what, where, and what people's tolerance levels are. I know that some people I've seen throughout the community that have spoken and kind of know that this is coming, so some people choose to leave the community for the day for 4th of July with their animals. They just kind of know this is coming for 4th of July. They're not happy with it, but they've kind of accepted it. But just for our documentation, that's the calls that we've received. And a lot of it for us is just education.
And I can talk to you a little bit about the permit process too. I can tell you this year alone, we gave out 1 permit for use of fireworks, and it was for a residential. The individual came in, met all the requirements for a permit, and we issued it. And so, you know, really, the other piece of that is enforcement. You know, if, you know, perhaps we need to educate the public more on the permit process, but typically, people that go and get a permit, they're responsible, they follow the rules, you know, because, you know, they're putting their name and their residence down. It's the other people that, as the chief alluded to, either know when you're coming or, you know, stop. And so it's a very difficult thing to try and manage and enforce.
Right.
And you know, the citizen that brought this forward has very legitimate concerns. You know, she has you know, fireworks landing in her yard and stuff like that also. But when we look at it overall, we look more towards that noise ordinance, because our local ordinance and the state ordinance is pretty clear of what you can and cannot do. As Derek indicated, you know, we may have to update our local ordinance just to be consistent with the state numbering of the law and everything, but I'm not sure how much more we can do.
If I may add, because I'm reading the ordinance, or just kind of going through as we're talking, and you know, you asked about what if it's concentrated. When you look at the holidays where there's no permit that's required, and again, the big one for us is this 4th of July, because we're not seeing a huge amount of calls. Not saying it's not happening in our community, it's just we're not receiving the complaints through the Memorial Day, the Labor Day, the Veterans Day, and then the New Year's Day. We're not seeing a huge amount of complaints. Now, again, to what the chief's saying, if we get a call, we show up and the person says there is fireworks that are, the debris is on my lawn, here it all is, and we know that the neighbor is shooting them off, then, you know, we can go over there and talk to them, and if they're not willing to help and clean up and do their part as a good neighbor, then obviously we can enforce this ordinance. It hasn't seemed to gotten that far, or to that level, where most of it's just been education, but also being a good neighbor as well.
Question?
So do either of you think that there's any omission or something wrong with the ordinance that we need to look at, or is it just lack of education and people just being careless? And it's not the ordinance's fault, I guess. You know, this kind of thing, like you said, people do stupid things sometimes or whatever, and, you know, but that's not, the ordinance can't really fix that. So I guess I'm just asking, is there something that needs to be added or subtracted from the ordinance? And I'm concerned more about, you know, well, everything but safety too. That's
I do think public education is a big part of it. You know, perhaps with holidays coming up, or even just now, just starting to do some public education on, you know, what is allowed and what is not. I think we could probably do better on that end.
Yeah, I think for the police department's perspective, you know, since this inception in 2015, you know, we have data to show that there are complaints, but there doesn't seem to be repeat offenders. Most people are just being educated. A lot of it is the after 10 p.m. Issue. You know, I don't know that I'm ready to go on record to say that it needs to change or not change. I think that we should always be evolving as time goes to kind of re-look at all of our ordinances and policies. But I think that in the last, like I said, I only did 3 years of data. It seems like the data is consistent with the years we've had, where it's only been 20, 25, 30-ish, maybe even less per year of complaints. And we've been addressing those as they come. So it seems to be, again, there's a question I know from the letter of the length of the ordinance of each holiday, maybe condensing that, the special weekend permits. I can't sit here and say that's a factor or not, because it seems like at least in 4th of July, we do have a few days that run over. So we have the 3rd and we have the 5th. And again, the 4th of July lands on a Sunday or a Saturday, you're going to have that whole weekend of everybody's lighting fireworks off.
Thank you both. Carlos, do you have any questions?
No, not at this point. I made comments earlier, I'll stick by those. I think the ordinance as drafted is pretty, I think it addresses those specific times of year, the holidays and whatnot, that you typically would see fireworks displayed. I think the other important part of it when we drafted the ordinance was it allowed people up to 3 opportunities to request permits for special occasions like weddings, graduations, family reunions, those sorts of important times for folks in town. So I thought it struck a pretty good balance, but I'm certainly open to having additional discussion. You know, we should always revisit our ordinances from time to time and see if they can be approved upon. So I'd be willing to revisit this one as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief brings up a good point. The one that really is the longer one is the Independence Day, depending where the holiday falls. Maybe we can shorten that up a little bit, one way or the other, but if it's gonna happen, it's still gonna happen. But I've looked at everything else looks to be in line. I'm very surprised with the number of complaints that we have had that they're low, they're not exceptionally high. I've read the letters that were presented to us, and they're very valid concerns. Maybe education is one of the better things that we could use to educate the people. And I think I sat on the committee the last time, and I mean, we spent quite a bit of time going through things and looking at things, and I mean, I kind of skimmed over it real quick, and I think it's a good rule to follow.
I'd just like to echo what the chief stated about calling the police department and working with them to, you know, deal with any interpersonal, inter-neighborhood issues that you have with fireworks, and allowing them to, you know, take care of that and document it so that we have these instances on record if you are seeing that your neighbors aren't following the ordinance. Do you-
I'll just take it, is anything done at the schools about education, fireworks education, things like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
From a fire safety standpoint, I mean, we'll brush over it, you know, how dangerous they are and, you know, the use of sparklers and things like that, but.
Might not be a bad thing to look into.
Okay. All right, I think we're not gonna make any motions on this evening. We'll, take in that consideration, we'll put it on for next meeting, talk about if we want to shorten the length of time.
Okay.
And we can discuss how we could or should solicit public input for this one.
Okay, I'll put that
At the
under
next-
old business for
Yes,
next
please.
meeting.
Anyone have anything else?
Nope, good.
Thank you, chiefs, appreciate it. All right, old business, tab B. Oh, we don't have a tab B. No old business. Does anyone have anything to bring up? No? Hollis, you all set?
Yes, thank you.
All right, 7C, the action matrix. Derek, any updates on the police station?
No, we
County Land.
reached out to the county a couple times since the last meeting, so I don't have any update on that.
Okay. And we have two vehicles that went out of service earlier last week.
Yes, so the DPW, one of the curbside trucks is out for repairs with an unknown return. And the police department has car 9 is back in service, however, they're continuing to monitor some electrical issues with that one. That's the one that's been in and out of service for quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Good? Okay. Okay. I'd like to go ahead and open up non-public session once again. Does
Public
anyone-
comment?
I'm sorry, public comment? Would anyone like to speak in public comment? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and close that.
Make a motion to go into non-public session, RSA 91A:3, 2B hiring, C adversely affect reputation, and D land. Anything else, Derek?
Can you add E, litigation?
E litigations.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion by Mark, second by Jim. Roll call, Collis?
Yes.
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 All right. We will go ahead and go into non-public session. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and hope to see you at the polls tomorrow.
Derek, we gonna stay here?